Hello everybody! Today I'm going to explain the board game Kings of Serbia. This is a board game for 2 to 4 players and the gameplay is about an hour long. So let's get started. At the beginning of the game setup, we place 9 empty cards in the middle of the main playing area in a 3x3 grid. After that, we take the territory card deck and we place 4 territory cards on each empty card, placed face down. After placing the territory cards on the territory map, each player takes their exploring marker and places it in the corner of the territory map closest to them. Then he places his action cards in a specific order. First, we place the exploring action card. After that, the conquering action card, and then following the grain, wood, and metal production cards. After placing the action cards, each player places his personal deck of cards. The personal or starting cards are the cards that have a stamp in the bottom left corner in the player's color. Since I took the blue exploring marker, my starting deck has a blue stamp in the bottom left corner. Then we shuffle our personal deck and draw 5 cards from the top of the deck. These 5 cards will be the cards we will play with for this round, and the remaining cards we put on the right next to our action cards. The cards we will place face up on the right next to our personal deck that was previously placed next to our action cards. This will become our discard pile. After placing our personal deck and action cards, we take the character card deck, shuffle it, and place it face down near the territory map. After placing the character cards, we take the bandit deck and place it also near the territory map. Next, we must place the market card and the 3 resource markers. The bonus explanation card and the resource cards, all near the territory map. Amongst themselves, players decide who will play first. The first player receives the first player marker and places it on the side. At the beginning of the game, each player takes their 5 starting cards and checks which cards they have in their hand. By comparing the cards' effects to the action cards, we will decide where we will place each card. Because I'm the first player, for this round, I will place 1 card face down on one of the action cards. After that, the player to my left will do the same, and then the next player going clockwise, until it's my turn again, when I will place another card on any action card. You can place more than 1 character card on an action card. We repeat this until all the players have placed all the cards from their hand. After all the players have placed the cards from their hand on the action cards, they turn over all the cards they placed at the same time. Now we will explain the course of the game. Because the game is played in rounds and each round has its phases, after turning over the placed character cards begins the exploring phase. The exploring phase begins with the first player, in this case that's me, who will count their total exploring value by counting the number of cards placed on the exploring action card. Since I placed 2 cards, I have an exploring value of 2. If I had placed a card that has a compass symbol on it, like this card, I would have added to my total exploring value, in this case 1, 2, 3, the number next to the compass symbol. So in this case, I would have gotten 4 exploring value, but this is not the case because I have only 2 exploring value. At the beginning of each round, our exploring marker is always placed at the starting position in the corner of the territory map closest to us. So if we explored in the last round, we will put our exploring marker back. While exploring, we start with the territory card first. And because I have 2 exploring value, I will use 1 value for movement and 1 value for exploring. So I will move my marker and explore it by turning over the territory card. Then I check what I received by exploring this territory. In my case, I received 2 grain, which is shown in the top left corner of the card. So I will take 2 grain resource cards and put them face down in front of me. If we had 4 exploring value, like explained earlier, I could have used the 3rd value for additional movement and the 4th for exploring one of the cards next to the first card in any direction. So I could have explored this one, and this one as well. If during the exploring phase you move to a territory card that was previously explored, you use only 1 value for movement. You cannot explore it. The same goes for moving to an empty card, where all the territory cards were previously conquered. We again use 1 value for movement and cannot explore it. After all the players have finished exploring, then begins the conquering phase. The conquering phase begins just like the exploring phase by counting the total conquering value placed on the conquering action card. In my case, I have 2 conquering value because I placed 2 cards, and an additional 2 value because I added the number shown next to the sword symbol. Because the sword symbol is the conquering symbol, so by adding this additional value, I have 4 in total. We can conquer any territory that was previously explored in the last phase. Each territory card has in its top left corner what you receive when you explore it. In the top right corner, the total amount of value needed for its conquering, in other words, the value we receive by placing character cards on the conquering action card. Below, we see the symbol that represents the type of terrain which will be important at the end of the game while receiving and counting points. And at the bottom of the card, you can see the number of points you will receive at the end of the game and the card's effect for every following round when conquered. Because I have in total 4 conquering value, I can conquer any of these 3 territories that were explored previously, because they have in their top right corner the value needed for their conquering, and it's 4. I can't explore this territory because 6 value is needed, and I don't have enough. I want to conquer this territory, and I will do so by taking it and placing it in front of me. If it happens that one player doesn't have enough conquering value for conquering a territory, he can use the value he has for buying bandits. Each bandit costs 1 conquering value, and if we decide to buy one, we can place it face down on the top of our personal deck. We will place bandits on our action cards later on, just like any other character card. After the conquering phase is the production phase. Each player, for themselves, when it's their turn, counts the total amount of resources they received by placing character cards on the 3 production action cards: grain, wood, and metal. In my case, because I placed 1 card on the grain production card, I will receive 1 grain resource card, which I will add to my resource pile. Each player does this for themselves, and if they have multiple cards, they will count the total amount of resources they will receive, like we did in the first 2 phases, by counting the number of cards and adding the number next to the complementary symbols. When the production phase ends, then begins the trading phase. At the beginning of the trading phase, each player takes their whole resource pile they collected during the previous phases and turns it over to see which resources they have. They decide which resources they want to keep and which ones they want to sell. The ones they want to sell, they take in their right hand and put it underneath the table. The ones they want to keep, they take in their left and do the same. When all the players have put both hands under the table, all the players raise their right hand and at the same time reveal the resources they are putting up for sale. Here we see an example for a 4-player game. In other words, the resources 4 players put up for sale. I will explain the scoring for a 4-player game, but if you need the scoring for a 2- or 3-player game, you can find it in the rulebook. As we can see, 3 players offered metal for sale. For that reason, I will move the metal resource marker to number 2 on the market card. Also, 2 players offered the grain resource. So I will move the grain marker to number 3. And since 1 player offered wood, I will put the wood marker on number 4. If all the players had offered the same resource, its marker would have been placed on number 1. After finishing the trading phase, then begins the buying phase. It begins by each player counting the total amount of money they earned by selling resources. This player earned 2 coins, 6 coins, and 4 more coins, which is 12 in total. With these 12 coins, he can buy as many available character cards as he can afford. When the player knows the total amount of money he has for buying, he checks which character cards he can buy. Each card in its top left corner has a symbol that represents the card's price, or how much money is needed in order to buy the card. In the top right corner, the number of points you will receive at the end of the game, and at the bottom, the card's effect. Each player can buy as many cards as he can afford with the money he has. When the player finishes buying cards, new cards are added from the top of the character card deck. All the cards the players buy during the buying phase, they place face down on top of their personal deck. Apart from character cards, players place bandit cards that they can also buy during the buying phase, and they cost 2 coins. After finishing the buying phase, we discard the cards placed on our action cards, face up next to the personal deck. We return our resource markers to their initial position. And the first player marker is handed to the player on the first player's left, who is now the first player for the next round. We also return our exploring markers to their starting positions beginning the next round. At the beginning of the next round, players draw 5 cards from the top of their personal deck. If the player doesn't have enough cards, they shuffle their discard pile and draw the remaining cards from the top. But because I have enough cards, I don't have to do this. During the gameplay, we will come across a card that has the card removing effect. This card allows the player to remove any card from either their personal deck or their discard pile. If we decide to remove from our personal deck, we shuffle it and put it back. But I want to remove from my discard pile. And after doing this, the removed card cannot be used again during the rest of the game. When you come across a card with this symbol on it, you have the right to add an additional card from the top of your personal deck and activate its effect if possible. The territory card effects are activated in every following round after conquering it. You can activate its effect in every round, but only once. For each next round, I have the right to take one additional resource of my choice, use one additional exploring value, I have the right to remove one card, and receive one extra coin. The game ends when a certain number of territory piles is emptied. When there are 4 players, you need to empty 5 territory piles. At the end of the game, players must count their points, starting with the points in the top right corner of the character cards from their personal deck. After that, they count the total points on the bottom of their territory cards. Next, we look at the bonus explanation card, where we can see that the player with the most territory cards receives 5 points. The player with the most plains receives 5 points, and so do the players with the most hills and mountains. After that, we count the total amount of points earned by having a certain number of different card effects in our personal deck. In my case, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different symbols, which will bring me 6 more points. I didn't count these 2 cards because the symbol on them is the same. When you have a symbol more than once, you count it as 1. The player that was the best ruler of his kingdom, in other words, the player with the most points at the end of the game, is also the winner of the game. So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy playing Kings of Serbia.